Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Leanna Brinder, Business Editor for the International Business Times. Joining me now is Stephen Wise. He's the co-founder of the Hideaways Club. So hi, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, we're talking property and building your business abroad. And firstly, let's pick up on the trend of investing in property. Back in pre-2007, bricks and mortar has always been considered as a fail-safe investment, but the financial crisis has considerably changed that idea. How have you seen the appetite for investing in real estate change now from 2007 till 2013?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we were pretty worried 2007, 2008, when the world seemed to be in some trouble and investment decisions were being taken in a different way. But what we found actually was that it was the making of the Hideaways Club. The Hideaways Club gives people the opportunity to invest in a portfolio of properties rather than any one particular asset, and for a fraction of the cost. With that in mind, it meant that people could get the same type of benefit from owning a property without having the full expense. As a consequence of the financial crisis, people have come to us in larger numbers. So from that point of view, we've seen it as a way of succeeding. We've had more inquiries and so forth. So in terms of responding to the question of how people look at it, they still want the benefit of a second home or investment in overseas property. But perhaps if they can do it with less risk, they're likely to do that.
Sure. I mean, when the Hideaways Club was founded, it was just, I suppose, on the cusp of when the financial crisis actually happened. Did you see still a surge in uptake from maybe high net worth individuals compared to maybe more middle income people?
Hundreds of thousands of people in the UK and across the world own overseas homes. And what happened in 2007, 2008 was that people's risk profile definitely changed. Were they prepared to put as much capital at risk in any one location? There were currency issues, availability of debt to finance it. All these things actually helped people look at us in a slightly different way. So yes, we started working on the idea of the Hideaways in 2005. So we were in a great place, 2007, 2008, when we'd already bought our first portfolio of properties, that we were able to take in the extra interest. But the income level of the person won't really determine, I don't think, their risk attitude. If they are interested in an overseas home or investing in property generally, then they will do that, and it's the best way of achieving what they want.
Sure. Well, then we obviously come on to 2010 when the sovereign debt crisis kicked off, and I suppose one could argue that it really hit the kind of key holiday areas that Britons love so much, so that's Spain, Greece and Cyprus. What are your views in terms of investing in property there, even if it's within a diversified portfolio?
Well, there's no question that one of the things about buying a property is you've got to think at the back of your mind, am I going to be able to sell it when I want to do so? I mean, Hideaways is a long-term hold business. So we're not a trader. We look to find properties which will have good long-term investment potential. It's fair to say we wanted to be in Greece for 3 or 4 years. I was very close to a deal on one property in Elunda in Crete, 2008. But we are not prepared at this stage to make a capital investment there of many millions of euros or pounds for the reasons that you said. We have got, the one thing I would want to say is that you can't talk about markets in kind of overall terms, because there are going to be parts of markets which are doing different things. So for example, you say Spain. Well, Ibiza is a Spanish jurisdiction, but it's doing very well. You've got Mallorca, which is not doing quite as well, and then you've got mainland Spain, which is having a terrible time. So you've got to look at the specifics of the market that you're talking about. And Hideaways investors love going to our place in Ibiza, and we want to buy more there.
Sure. I know you say that we have to look at specifics within those countries or regions, but for instance, like Greece and Cyprus, regulation is changing to adhere to those strict austerity measures, and that includes maybe difference in property taxes or keeping obviously deposits within the country or give it back to the government. So, I mean, in terms of that, do you feel that maybe Greece and Cyprus are no-go areas at the moment?
Interesting enough for Hideaways, probably not. When they say that the time to buy is when everyone else is trying to sell. So I think our feeling is, as I said, we wanted to buy both Greece and Cyprus over the years. Haven't felt confident enough to do that. Are more concerned less on the tax side, more on the can you actually sell the asset at some point in the future, and that's the nervousness we would have. But because Hideaways is a portfolio approach, and only a small fraction of an investor's money goes into any one property, we feel that we can probably take a greater risk than someone who would buy a property in its entirety.
Sure. And what are your views on maybe moving on to the Asian markets, like pockets of opportunity for investment there, especially Hong Kong, for instance?
Well, Hong Kong is eye-wateringly expensive at the moment, and it's something we'd like to be there, but at the moment we're not able to justify it from an investment perspective. But we also have a lot of investors based in Hong Kong and Singapore and other Asian locations. And interestingly enough, their usage of property is slightly different to our European investors. And so we have to continually look at our portfolio and make sure that we satisfy what they want. But yeah, the world is different in Asia. It's far more optimistic, forward-looking, I would argue, than many of the European countries.
Sure. So I suppose rounding off, where do you see the major growth opportunities if you had to pick really one or two sectors that you could really, as an investor, get your teeth stuck into for long-term investment? Where would that be?
Well, that's a really good question because, and you're probably going to hate me for saying this, but there are parts of Europe which are as popular as ever. So I mentioned Ibiza before, Sardinia, for example. That's really, really popular. So if you are a long-term holder of property, then from my point of view, if you can buy well, and that's always the trick, buy well, then I see as much benefit for buying into those places as I do in, I mean, we've bought in Phuket and in Koh Samui and in Bali in Asia. There are opportunities everywhere. The thing is to work hard to find them.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That was Stephen Wise. He's the co-founder of the Hideaways Club.